Hello, my name is Mateo Castillo Torres Gutierrez Pereira Suarez. I'm here to talk about as to should we or should we not invest in Venezuela. I was tasked with the CEO of Tel Americorp to invest and to research as to whether Venezuela would be a good option of investment. So the main questions are, is Venezuela economically stable, and should we move our firm, to Venezuela? And this was all done thanks to our CEO of Tel Americorp, Matthew Warnzak. Some background information on Venezuela. Venezuela is located on the northern coast of South America, between Colombia and Guyana. Some major cities in Venezuela include Maracaibo, Barquisimeto, Valencia, Maracay, and Caracas. It's estimated that about 80% of the country's population lives within the relatively narrow urban belt. In fact, Venezuelans refer to almost all the rest of the country as the interior. Some notable revolutions in Venezuela's history include a period of civil war, which began in 1846 and ended in 1870, when Guaidó Antonio Guzman assumed power. He retained power until his overthrow in 1888. Other notable dictators include Cipriano Castro, who ruled between 1899 and 1906. When doing our research, we noticed that Venezuela has some iffy allies, which include China, Russia, Cuba, Turkey, Iran, and India. In most of all of these countries that Venezuela is allies with, Venezuela has trade agreements and shared ideologies. So when viewing Venezuela from this standpoint, we can see that as a whole, Venezuela has a rough background and its history and with whom they make alliances with. So we move on to the GDP of Venezuela. A quick background on GDP. GDP includes the consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. To go into further detail, consumption, a quick brief definition, this includes all private expenditures by households and nonprofit institutions on goods and services. Investments, this component accounts for spending on goods that will be used for future production. Government spending, this includes government expenditures on goods and services that are consumed by providing public services, as well as investments by the government. It does not include transfer payments, since these are not payments for goods and services. And then finally, net exports. This is calculated as exports minus the imports. Exports, goods and services produced domestically and sold abroad. Imports, goods and services produced abroad and purchased domestically. Venezuela's numbers. Consumption. Consumption has historically been the largest component, representing about 75% of the GDP. This high percentage indicates a strong reliance on household spending to drive economic activity. The government spending. Government consumption accounts to approximately 15% of the GDP. Investment accounts to about 25% of the GDP. The investment levels have been volatile due to the economic instability, lack of investor confidence, and the impact of sanctions, which have affected both domestic and foreign investment. Net exports. Net exports for Venezuela are typically negative. Around negative 15% of the GDP is net exports. Venezuela's economy heavily relies on oil exports, which constitute a bulk of its export revenues. However, declining oil productions, falling global oil prices, and sanctions have significantly reduced export income. Meanwhile, imports have also been constrained by limited foreign exchange availability and economic difficulties, leading to trade deficit. Moving on to the price indices, we are roughly in the year of 2023, 2024 on this relative information. The CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, is roughly not that good at a 259,86417.38 is the latest. The inflation rate also very not good, around 67.8%, rounding about to 68%. And the money supply currently is $89,310.25. And for the money supplies M2, sorry, that was for M1. And for M2, it is 89,413.82%. Or not percent, sorry. Dollars. Or millones. To continue on the price indices, Venezuela's hyperinflation. We could talk about how Venezuela has struggled with hyperinflation over the years. While the country technically exited hyperinflation in recent years, it still faces extremely high inflation rates, which erode the value of the bolivar, or the currency used in Venezuela. The effects of oil on Venezuela, which is a good topic to talk about. Venezuela's economy is heavily reliant on oil exports, which account for a significant portion of the government's revenue. The fluctuating global oil prices and declining production have made the economy highly susceptible to external shocks.
And a good question to ask is it stable? The Venezuelan bolivar remains highly unstable due to the internal conflict and economic challenges and external pressures. The government's attempts to stabilization have had limited success, and the currency's future is expected to see further depreciation unless significant economic reforms are implemented.
Now moving on to Venezuela's GDP plus more information. Venezuela's GDP per capita. From the research that we have done, we can see that GDP per capita in Venezuela has fluctuated throughout the last 40 years. The highest in the last 40 years was in 2012, when it was approximately $12,688.11 per capita. But since then, it has devastatingly gone down to, more recently, $3,867.44. The population throughout the years has increased. In 1970, it was 10.73 million, and now in more recent years, in 2019, it is 28.44 million. So we can see that has increasingly gone up throughout the years. Growth rate in Venezuela. From 1970 to 1980, the growth rate was about 47.33%. In 1980 to 1990, it was about 16.48%, and we could see it went down. In 1990 to 2000, it went back up to 27.45%, and in 2000 to 2010, it went drastically down to negative 1.44%. In 2010 to 2015, it went back up to 8.46%, and in 2015 to 2019, it went all the way back down to negative 29.21%. Continue on this. The GDP of Venezuela throughout the years. In 1970, it was about 11.56 billion. 1980, 59.12 billion. 1990, 48.61 billion. 2000, 117.1 billion. 2010, 392.2 billion. 2015, 125.45 billion. And in 2019, 73 billion. So when searching the GDP of Venezuela throughout the years, Venezuela's GDP was very easy to make an analysis of. The ups and downs signify economic rises and crises that have occurred. Now to talk about the HDI. What is the HDI? The HDI is a summary measure of the human development. How is it defined? The HDI is a summary composite measure of the country's average achievements in three basic aspects of human development: health, knowledge, and standard of living. Low human development, usually around 0.550 to 0.699, is low. For medium human development is 0.700 to 0.799, and for high human development, it's anything above 0.800. Venezuela falls under a low human development, meaning they lack the knowledge, health, and overall standard of living. In their most recent years, they fell under 0.69. Some important factors that follow Venezuela. Their adult literacy rate is about 95.37% as of recent data, with the male literacy of 95 and the female literacy of 95.72%. The life expectancy at birth. The life expectancy at birth is for the total population of Venezuela is about 74.5 years as of 2024. The males is roughly 71.5 and the females is roughly 77.7 years. For the infant mortality rate in Venezuela is 13.9 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2024. Moving on to the physicians per 1,000 population is roughly 1.73 physicians per 1,000 population as of the most recent data in 2017. Mobile phones per capita in 2022 were nearly 18 million mobile cellular subscriptions in Venezuela, which translated to nearly 63 mobile cellular subscriptions per 100 inhabitants. In conclusion, Venezuela is not worthy of this investment for Mr. Warnzak. Venezuela is more like this toilet for garbage use only. Thank you.